Hello, this is the Welcome series. This is introductory level technical training from Extreme Networks. This is where you come to meet the family, meet the product families of Extreme. And this series is all about ExtremeCloud IQ. Now, if you're a customer, a partner, a distributor, employee, welcome. Welcome to you. Everybody's welcome to this training. Now we're in week 5. It's week 5 now. Can you believe it? We're nearly at the end. So thank you for sticking with us through this training. And very soon, in week 6, we'll be opening up the exam to you. You'll be able to take the certification exam, get that badge, and add it to your resume. So I'm just going to open it up to Bethany and Claire before we get going with Isaac. So I'll go to Bethany first. Bethany, how are you? You've been off on holiday. How was it?
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. Thank you, Rowan. Episode 5. Yeah, I went away to sunny Weymouth, which is the south coast of the UK, and just about managed to get back.
Just about to get back. What do you mean? How did it go? What happened?
So it all went really well, except we lost our car keys on the beach, so had to get a train home. So I'm glad to be back for episode 5.
Oh no. Now, interestingly, Bethany, that if I don't know if everybody knows, but that coastline in the UK is world famous for dinosaurs, and people go there and they hunt for fossils from dinosaurs from back in the dinosaur age. Maybe in a million years, Bethany, somebody will find your car keys.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope they can return them.
All right. Is there any shout outs from you before we get going?
Same from me. Just get ready to screenshot the questions at the end of today's episode, as they will help you and be contributing to the exam at the end of episode 6.
Great. Thanks, Bethany. Claire, over to you. Any shout outs from you? Any holiday plans, Claire?
I mean, Bethany, that story just absolutely kills me. For those that you know, Bethany told me as soon as she got back, and I was crying because I think you had a really long journey home, didn't you? So yeah, not so great with your family, obviously, but oh god, that really that really cracked me up. And because we're amongst friends now and you're all part of the family, I would love to hear all of your travel stories. If you've got any like blunders or funny things that have happened to you, jump in the live chat as always, or if you're watching on demand, we'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. And if you've got any questions, not travel related or not funny, or they are a bit technical, please email us at learn@extremenetworks.com. But yeah, no travel plans actually for me. I'm still kind of holding out because I think my first holiday back, I'm sure everyone's in the same boat. I want it to be a good one. So yeah, I'm still kind of holding out, and then maybe I'll get something booked in the new year.
Thanks, Claire. Yeah, everybody's got a holiday story, haven't they? It'd be great to hear some of those from all of you. And yeah, if you've got any travel tips, I think we're all starting to think where we're going to plan a holiday next year if that's possible. So global audience here, let us know. Where's a good where do you live? Where's a good place to come on holiday? All right, I can see, thanks Claire and Bethany, I can see Isaac is all ready to go. Now, every week I've been talking to you about turn on the subtitles, and this week Isaac said to me, could he do it? He wanted to share his own story and his own reasons why that cause is really important to him. So I'm going to let Isaac kick off today with a little story about that. I can see he's ready to go. This week's all about troubleshooting. It's a really popular topic, and it's a big thing. It's something that as network engineers you already know about, but we're going to talk to you about it. Troubleshooting with ExtremeCloud IQ. All right, let's get going. Enjoy episode 5.
Thank you, Rowan. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, everybody, for this opportunity to come to episode 5. Episode 5, one more, and then we're done. I really hope you've enjoyed the training till date. So, what I wanted to talk about today is something that Rowan has brought up before, and you're starting to see on my LinkedIn posts and also on my Instagram posts and you're starting to see it in some of the stuff that we're doing at Extreme Academy and things like that. It's a hashtag that we're using called turn on the subtitles. Turn on the subtitles. This is something that's really dear to my heart. And when I was a kid, I used to consume books. I would go to the library, and we were allowed to take 3 books out at a time when we went to the library, and I would go after school, pick up 3 books, take them home, and come back the next day, and I'd finished reading the 3 books. And my mom would like, "You're supposed to be sleeping, go to bed." And I'd sit with a torch under the blanket or whatever, reading, because I just loved reading, and I still love reading. Thoroughly enjoy reading. But I think that reading helped me massively. And this campaign is really aimed at helping children the world over. It's not just the UK, it's all over the world, to help children to read more. I think that the world of reading enriches our lives tremendously. Books enrich our lives. Today we kind of read in small little fragments, social media posts, and there's a few words there, and there's nothing much, and I think that our imagination suffers. So I came across this campaign, and I had a chat to Rowan, and I said, "Rowan, we should do something like this, because this campaign is about helping people read, right? Is about helping children to read better, to read more." And it's not a political campaign, it's not a religious campaign, it's none of that at all. This campaign is simply about, when you post something, use this hashtag. If you know someone in the media, in the broadcast media, ask them about this. Ask them to go to the site, to go read what it's about, because the research shows that children, especially children between the ages of 6 to 10 years old, that their reading skills are multiplied hugely when they watch content and the words, the subtitles appear in their language, right? So if it's English program, then the words are in English, and if it's Spanish, then the words are in Spanish, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't cost anything. You don't have to pay to join. It's not an organization, that's saying, "Oh, please send money." It's not about that. It's just about doing something good. Simple as that. And as part of Extreme Networks, as being part of Extreme Academy, as being part of this Welcome series, being a teacher, I know the value of reading and people understanding. And as you know, on YouTube, you can actually go down to subtitles, and you can subtitles and put subtitles on there. So if you're watching this content as video on demand, and maybe you're coming from a Spanish-speaking country, or maybe that Spanish is your first language, or Portuguese, or whatever, it doesn't really matter. You can watch content, and if you really want to, know English better, you can always just go in there and turn on the subtitles. And then as I talk, you can see the subtitles. And even that is something that as an adult will help you to match the words to that you hear to something that you see, and improve your reading. So what I'm asking is, please join me. When you do social media posts, when you chat to people in the media, in magazines, whatever, just finish it or put one of those hashtags on there, and with everything that you do. And it's quite simple, right? It's turnonthesubtitles.org. You'll see that over here. Put it on. Just it makes people curious. More people see it, the more people read that, the more people go there and understand what this is about, the more they'll do it. Now, if you don't like subtitles, whatever, of course you can turn it off, but this is aimed at 6 to 10-year-olds, which is not really what Welcome series is aimed at, but probably the people who are watching have children, have brothers or sisters that are young, and you can help them to improve their reading. And if they're great at reading, fantastic. But maybe you can encourage somebody else. So thank you for participating in this with us, for the patience in listening to me talk about this. I hope it's okay with you. And now we're ready to go in with troubleshooting. Here's another one of those modules that has 3 barbells. And this is a bit of an unusual one. And it's unusual because up till now, I've been showing you and telling you and trying to, in a really freely and open way, talk about ExtremeCloud IQ. But this is a tool that's going to help network administrators, IT administrators, people who work for you, perhaps, or maybe you, one of those people, is going to really help you. And so it's difficult for us to say exactly who the audience is on something like this. But maybe you've recently come into our family with ExtremeCloud IQ. Generally speaking, you've set up an access point at home and you've got internet access and it kind of works. But now you've been asked to build a wireless network and it's 10, 20, maybe 50 APs. And now the game is a little bit different. It becomes a little bit more complicated. And there are courses that you can learn on how to do these things. But what I'm going to try and do over here is give you a little bit of know-how, things that we at Extreme Networks have learnt regarding networking. Now, as you know, Extreme is a networking company and we do wired networks from the edge, meaning from the closest device that touches a consumer, like an access point, to switches all the way back into the data center, where all this data is aggregated on these massive high performance switches. So that's essentially what we at Extreme Networks do. But we have a support team known as GTAC, and they handle support calls from all around the world with people who call in because they've got issues and they need some support, etc., etc. So this troubleshooting that I'm going to be going through is really to help those guys who are new to this, new to the family, new managing ExtremeCloud IQ, managing wireless networks, and giving you a few tips. It's only going to be about 40 minutes. It's not a massively deep dive into the world of wireless, but it should give you an understanding a little bit more to help you. So we're going to be dealing in this case with wireless, not necessarily looking at wired networks. So join me as we go in. Let me just set up the dump in and see what we can do over here. Right. Best practices. What have we learned? What does the GTAC team, what have they learned about best practice? What have they learned that they can teach us when it comes to troubleshooting wired networks? Well, you always have to start by asking questions, right? When I ran my own business in South Africa, it was exactly the same thing. I would consult to companies that had less than 50 computers, and I would get the call, my network's not working, my computer's on network, my network is down, my server is down. And there's always the same type of questions that you have to ask. And you start off by saying, okay, is this a one-off? When did this happen? You say your network is down. When did this happen? Is this something that just happened once? Does it happen all the time? Does it happen all the time at a particular time? For example, the things that you're listening for, the things that you want to hear is somebody saying things like, oh, every day in the morning, the network is just crawling. It doesn't, when people come into work, it's really, and then the rest of the day, it's kind of okay. Only in the morning. That'll help you. That's a big help, because if you're using ExtremeCloud IQ, you can then start to segment the time and just use filters use filters or those time drop downs to start segmenting by those hours in the morning, say from 7 till 9 in the morning. Then you can start to get data and look at it over a period of time and see, get more specific, because that's really important. So the first question really is when. You say you've got a problem, when does it happen? What is the regularity? How often? Is it specific? The next thing that you're going to be asking is where. So, customers say, well, we got a problem. Okay, where? Is it happening at your main offices? Is it happening at some other or a factory? Is it happening on a certain floor? Do you have a 5-story building on the 3rd floor? It's happening that people are always complaining over there. Why? Maybe you have a lot of machines there, for example, and that might be causing interference, or microwaves, it'd be a kitchen, something to that effect. But another one of the questions that is going to help you to troubleshoot and be a good troubleshooter is, where does this happen? Where does this problem that you're having, where does that happen? The next one is, what does it affect? This problem that you are having, what does it affect? I used to have a lot of issues in South Africa, and the issues were not of unreliable networks, but it was always at the end of the month when there was pressure to get invoices and statements and all of that stuff out. Then suddenly the network printer wasn't working, and there was an issue with this, and there was a problem over here. And so what was it? What is being affected when somebody says the network is down? Okay, so what does that mean? Does that mean that you can't browse Facebook on your mobile phone at work? Does that mean that you can't get to WhatsApp? Does that mean that you can't watch movies? Does that mean that you can't get to your SAP, to your SAP financial system or your HR system? What exactly does that mean? Does it affect one type of client, or does it affect everybody, right? People might say, well, my computer's working fine, but my laptop's working fine, but my mobile phone doesn't work. There's a problem with my mobile phone, and Susie has it as well, and Tom has the same problem, right? That's important, very important to know. Recurring. This is tied up to when. Is this recurring? Do you see it all the time, or does it only happen at month end that you come across this problem? These are questions you need to ask. What about recent changes? This is a question I would often ask and say, well, have you changed anything? And people would say, well, no, not really. And sometimes they did. They were just scared to say it. Or they might say something like, well, I did an update. My machine said it needed an update, and now it doesn't work, which is completely possible. That can happen very, very often. But for somebody who is troubleshooting a network, and specifically troubleshooting a wireless network, these are fundamental questions that we need to ask. And so when we know the answer to these questions, our objective, our target should be to try and recreate the problem, all right? Recreate that solution. So if somebody says every morning between 7 and 9 this is happening, then what you should be doing if you're troubleshooting, if you normally started at 9:30 or 9 o'clock, then one morning, come in early, come in at 6:30, sit there, watch the people come in, so watch in real time what actually happens, see if you can experience the same thing as the rest of the people. Try and recreate that problem. It is a very, very good thing if you can recreate the problem. The worst technical problems are problems that happen haphazardly. Might happen today, not happen for 2 weeks, then it happens again, and then it happens one day in the morning, and those types of issues, very difficult to troubleshoot. So if you can recreate the problem, 50% of the issue has been sorted already. If you can recreate that, then the next step would be to try and isolate the cause. What is causing this problem? So it could be something as easy as In the morning, everybody comes to work. What do? They go to the little to the kitchen over there, and there are 2 microwaves or 3 microwaves in the kitchen. Everybody turns them on to heat up and make their little breakfast, or to heat up a cup of soup, or whatever it might be. And you have an access point in the kitchen, for example, and it might be in a central location, and those microwaves are just completely messing up with your wireless, and it only happens in the morning. If you know what that is, then it's easy, right? If you can isolate the cause and say, it's those AP, those microwaves that are causing this problem, then you need to fix that up. And how do you do that? By formulating a plan to solve the problem, formulating a plan. Okay, so it's obvious that we can't have the access points over here because of what is happening. So let's see if we can move the microwaves around, or alternatively place the access points in an area that is going to be less affected by the microwaves than what it currently is now. It's kind of logical, right? Once you've formulated a plan, of course, you don't just implement. You need to speak to management. And is it okay if we do that? Isn't it? Maybe HR says, no, you can't do that. For what it doesn't matter. But you need to, once you've formulated the plan and got people to understand what it is and explained exactly what it is, then you need to implement the plan to get this issue resolved so that it doesn't happen all the time. And really, I'm not joking when I say sometimes these things are so silly, so simple things that might be causing the interference, that might be causing a problem. And just by making a few little changes, boom, the problem goes away. It's not always like that. You get lucky. Sometimes you don't, and it's a lot more complicated. Now, once you've done that, the next important step is to test to verify that the problem is resolved. This is something that I learned this lesson very quickly when I was running my own business. And that was, customer would say they have a problem with their operating system, Windows, running Windows, whatever version it was, Windows 95. I would run an update and say, there's a new update for Windows. And I would run it and say, thank you very much, get in my car, and off I go. And the computer works absolutely fine until there's a reboot. And suddenly when there's a reboot on that machine, boom, everything breaks. It doesn't work anymore. It creates more problems than what it solves. And what happens? You end up having to go back again to the customer, having to fix again what you did, and because you didn't do it properly. So it's really important that once you've gone through all of these steps and you implement the plan, that you test it. You come back the next day after you've made the changes, and that you test, because if it works, great, fantastic. But if it doesn't, at least you are there to show face and to show that you are working to resolve the issue. So that is really important for you to do. And then finally, the one thing that IT people really don't like doing a lot, and that is document the issue. Document the issue. I would strongly suggest, if you're an IT person watching this, pretty new to this industry, and you want to build yourself a good reputation, then do it by building good documentation. Document your network. Document exactly how you've set it up. And if you make changes like this, then document those changes and keep them in a place that other people can read, right? Because there's nothing worse than walking into an environment. You're a new guy, the company fired the previous guy, you come in there, and now there's no documentation, there's nothing. You look at access points and nothing makes sense to you. And it might be perfect sense, but you look at it and it doesn't make any sense. Yet, if they had documented and told you the reason that they had put it there, then you would have understood and you wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. So be a great guy, not just an average IT guy or girl. Be the best that you can, but do your documentation, document your network. And then, of course, finally, provide feedback to the user. Right, these were the issues. This is what we discovered. This is what we done. This is how we resolved it. Then we tested it, and I've now tested it for a whole week. Everybody that I've spoken to says all it's good. Fantastic. You've resolved the issue. Happy customer, happy you. Okay. All right. And you're going to use ExtremeCloud IQ to help you to do these things. Now, if you're in networking, then the term OSI model should make sense to you, should understand what the OSI model actually is. For those of you who don't know or don't have an idea what it is, it's a conceptual attempt to describe how a network packet, how some information goes from location A to location B. The best way to describe it in a non-IT way is like this. Imagine you need to send a letter. Yes, I know, I'm old, I know that. But imagine you need to send a letter from A to B. Let's say I needed to send something to someone in South Africa. Now, to send that letter, I basically need to write something on it, put it in an envelope, write an address on the inside and on the outside, on the front and the back, get a stamp for it, hand it to the post office, and a week later or 2 weeks later, it arrives in South Africa, however long it takes. Theoretically, that's all that needs to happen. But that's not what the OSI model is about. In the background, if I had to describe the OSI model in terms of sending a letter, I would need to describe in detail what actually would happen. And I would need to say, well, every 2 hours, the post van arrives at the post office and they load all the mail from the last 2 hours into a big gray bag. They seal the bag and they put a stamp on it, and then they put that in the van, and the driver then goes to the next post office, and off he goes and off he goes and off he goes until in an hour or an hour and a half time he gets to the main depot in Cambridge and he drops all the bags at the main depot. From that point, then the depot handlers take over. They take it, they unseal it, they look at every envelope, and they have it, put it into a machine that sorts it out for letters that need to go to Cambridge, letters that need to go to London, to go to all the different places, big cities here in the UK. If it's to go internationally, that goes into another bucket, and then from there it gets sorted. Okay, that's to South Africa, that's to Australia, that's to New... Yes, and then once that happens, the buckets for South Africa are taken through to another depot, perhaps at the Heathrow Airport, and then they wait for the right plane. It gets loaded onto the plane, and you understand? And so the OSI model is a conceptual undertaking, conceptual model that explains really clearly on each one of those layers, on each one of these, depots, what happens at that depot. Well, on this depot, this happens. They open the bag, they unseal it, they do this, they sort it out, and then it goes to the next layer. And what happens on this layer? Well, at this layer, a big truck drives it to here, and each one of these layers in the OSI model explains a specific procedure, something that happens there specifically. So that's what the OSI model is in English terms for the non-IT guys. For the IT guys, troubleshooting a wireless LAN is just like you would troubleshoot a wired network as well. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same principle, because you're still using the OSI model. However, in a sense, it's easier because on wireless networks, the only two layers on which wireless networks work or operate are layer 1 and layer 2. Now, the OSI model has 7 different layers, 7 different stages. Think about the letter that from the post office to South Africa, all the layers that it has to go through. In the OSI model, the only thing that can go wrong in a wireless network happens on layer 1 and layer 2. That's it. That's it. If the problem doesn't exist on the first 2 layers, it's not a Wi-Fi problem. You don't have a Wi-Fi problem. You have any other problem, but not a Wi-Fi problem. So what are the problems? What could be causing something like this? Well, the number one culprit is almost always bad drivers. And by this I don't mean, the vehicle drive, people driving those trucks carrying the letters. No, I don't mean that. You've often seen, if you do an installation of a scanner or a printer or something like that, especially in Windows, it says please install the drivers. You need to install the updated drivers. I have a Wacom tablet over here, and when I install this Wacom tablet, it says I need to install the latest drivers, and I need to go to Wacom's website, find my operating system, Catalina or whatever it is, and then get the latest drivers for that, and then my tablet works the way it's supposed to work. But bad drivers, when the code is not properly written, that can often lead to a machine or a client having trouble on the network. So that is a big culprit. Compatibility issues. A square peg in a round hole, it doesn't work. Compatibility issues. With I have a printer that I bought a few years ago, a Canon printer, and the other day I tried to connect it to my Mac, and I went to plugged it in. It didn't recognize it. I went to the Canon website, and it said, sorry, there's no more support on the latest operating system for that printer. It's a little bit old already. It's like, oh, it's incompatible. So sometimes you have compatibility issues. I'd have to either find a new printer, buy a new printer, or find generic drivers that might not have all the features but kind of still work. And then the last one is improperly configured supplicant. Okay, supplicant, somebody that's asking for data. They are improperly configured. So maybe you have the drivers, you even have the right driver, but you configure it improperly. You configure it to run a particular protocol that might not even exist. Boom, you're going to have a problem with that. So how would we do that? If we know that drivers are the problem, well, that's quite easy, right? You would need to just upgrade, get the latest drivers. And I'm assuming that you don't have the latest, but that would be kind of the first place, is you would go and look for the latest drivers and install them. That's the cheap way, and that's, if you can get that, that is first prize. Your problem is solved very quickly. But oftentimes it's beyond that. Sometimes people buy devices like handheld scanners. And those things, man, they just work. You buy them and they just work. And so something that should have a life of 5 years, you've been using them for 15 years. It's got ancient technology. And the customer's like, no, if it works, don't fix it. We're not replacing anything. If it works, leave it. But you upgrade your entire network, and suddenly there's no more drivers to work on the new network using those old clients, old devices. That's a real problem. And so customers will pay for a new wireless network, new access points, new all things. They'll spend the money for that, but they won't upgrade their clients. Those old handheld scanners, they don't work. They don't even understand AC, AX. Whatever it is, they don't understand, and you have a problem that they don't work. So customers sometimes spend money on things that are not as important as what they should if they want to get a really reliable network. So sometimes it's just client updates, technology that is slow. So new technology comes out, and that company says, well, we're not going to make this a priority. We'd prefer to sell our new devices, so we'll make sure that they work well. The old devices, we'll take 6 months, because we want everybody to upgrade. So there are those types of things. You do, of course, we know that like the latest access points, they've got to be backward compatible. We kind of understand that is the case. But oftentimes legacy client devices, they can't connect to the newer 802.11 APs, for example, when the technology is introduced, right? Because there's still some things in there, like elements in beacons, in beacons that are issued by access points. They might not understand that what to do with that particular beacon, and it becomes a problem. BSS fast transition, i.e., is one of those things where that particularly happened. So if we kind of understand where most of the problems are happening, drivers, incompatibility, bugs, etc., then we can say the following, that 70% of all Wi-Fi problems, they happen on layer 1. The interface layer, the physical layer, the radio frequency interference. That's where most of these issues are going to happen, on layer 1. 70% of these issues. Client, radio, and driver problems, what we've mentioned before. Client not updated, drivers are updated or improperly configured. Those are the areas where you typically see problems. Security settings, incorrect security settings, the wrong type of security. Now, I suggest, if you're having issues and if you've got a really secure wireless network, try creating a wireless network that doesn't have that, just for testing purposes, that's not really secure, that uses open. See if you can connect on that. If that works, then try the next one, WPA2. Try that and see if that works. If that works, okay, so what's the next level? And on you go until you discover what it is, what that incompatibility is. Another issue could be power over Ethernet. Remember when I showed you that an access point can be powered by an Ethernet cable that's plugged into a switch? That switch is providing power. So not only connectivity, but it's providing power. Now, you could have a lack of power. In other words, the switch that you're using might be feeding a whole lot of devices. It might have a budget and say, look, I have 100 watts of power that I can give out to access points, but maybe you put in 10 access points and they all need 17 watts, and boom, what you're going to have? You're going to have a problem. You don't have enough power. So power over Ethernet would be one of those issues as well. Also, access firmware issues on access points. So in ExtremeCloud IQ, we we show you the version number of the software that's running on that particular access point or on that particular switch. And if you suspect it could be that, you can always go and do an update and see if there's an update for that, and put the newer firmware, which, if the previous one had bugs, this one will resolve that. So there's a number of ways that you can sort these issues out. Now, also, when it comes to radio frequency, you have a lot of tools available to you. Radio frequency tools that look at radio spectrum, that plot radio spectrum. And with time, you'll get to know what your radio spectrum looks like, what healthy spectrum looks like. And so when you're looking at spectrum constantly, you get a picture of what it's supposed to look like. And when it goes out of skelter, you then know, oh, okay, there's an issue over here. I'll give you a silly example. I monitor my sleep every day, every night. So when I wake up, I look at my sleep pattern. Today, the day that I'm recording this, I actually woke up and it's like, wow, that's really unusual, because usually I fall asleep, right? And then I have some REM sleep, and then it goes up again, I wake up, and then it falls asleep again, and that's kind of healthy sleep. Last night was like, went down, and it just stayed down all the night. So either I'm feeling particularly good today, or I'm not too sure. But because I watch and monitor the patterns every day, every night, or every day when I wake up, I know what looks like an unusual pattern. So you have tools that can help you to identify these things. Let's look at what we spoke about, PoE budget, power over Ethernet budget, right? When you buy a switch, if it's a PoE switch, you will know what the PoE budget is. That means how much power that switch has, or how much capacity that it has in terms of watts to power up other devices. Now remember, this is not just carrying power, it carries data as well, right? Because there's a number of different pairs. I think it's 4 pairs. There's 8 wires on an RJ45 connector. So they carry data on 2 wires in and out, and then they carry power as well. So this cable Ethernet is doing 2 things in one. So the switch has the ability to issue power. Now it has a budget. Let's assume that budget is, let's say, 200 watts of power. That means that if each access point, right, if each access point is taken an amount of power, that budget gets reduced. Just like you see that battery, for every access point, that budget gets reduced. If you get to the point where you've taken up all the power, guess what's going to happen? Those other access points are going to be unreliable. Either they're not going to function, or they will switch on and off constantly, and it will drive you absolutely crazy because you're connected, you're not connected, you're connected, you're not connected, you're connected, and it's like, is anybody else having issues? No, wireless is working fine. But you're going crazy. Why? Because your access doesn't get enough reliable power, so it goes off, on, off, on, off, on. Make sense? Let's give it a stop only for 1 minute because and then we will come back. Come on, get out, stretch. We've been going for something like nearly 40. Okay, let's carry on. PoE, very times. I would almost say, before you do anything else, go check your switch. Go look at the how much power it has, how much power it is able to give out, and then correlate that to the access. If it's not PoE issues that are causing this issue that you're having, the problem that you're having. Happen in AP firmware. We do our very best at Extreme Networks, and I'm sure every vendor does their very best to provide a bug-free software, but that doesn't exist. So just check regularly, come back regularly to ExtremeCloud IQ, go check if there's updates. If there are, run them, because somewhere else, and we've addressed it, and we've fixed that. You could also help us at Extreme and send them to us, and we can also analyze and work to try and fix that bug really quickly. 70% on layer 1 leaves about 30% on layer 2. And this could be, if it's on layer 2, if it's not layer 1, it's probably a layer 2 issue, roaming problems, all right, as you roam from access point to access point. Layer 2 retries. For example, if there's a lot of noise and interference on there, layer 2 can keep retrying, because remember, it's a contention medium, so it will wait until there's silence before it makes a request. So you could have contention and constant retries. Authentication and association problems as well. This sometimes happen. Every now and then my iPhone says, oh, sorry, I can't connect to your network. I was like, what are you talking about? You've been connected to that network forever. And I just go, all right, connect, boom, and suddenly it connects. It happens, not often, but it does. It certainly does happen. With PSK, authentication, troubleshooting, that becomes a little bit deeper, right? We're not going to go massively into that, but passphrase mismatch. Are you sure that the passphrase that you're using is correctly? You might have typed everything incorrectly, but maybe there's an uppercase instead of a lowercase. Things like that happen. Sometimes in some keyboards, an I and an L, uppercase I and an L, they look the same, and you could easily make a mistake like that. Those happen, and passphrases can be a problem. PMK is never properly created. Four-way handshake that fails. That can happen as well. More difficult to troubleshoot, but as an IT person, you should have the skills to be able to do this. Certainly if you've ruled out the 70% that are on layer 1. An improperly configured wireless network will also do that, right? Because what's supposed to happen is your access points are not supposed to, if you look at this drawing over here, you can see that this is a very strong, these access points here are so close to each other that it creates a very strong signal down the middle. And it shouldn't be like that. They should be a little bit more spaced out so that it's easy to roam from one to the other. Because what's supposed to happen is your access point is constantly sending out these beacons, and it's your iPhone or your mobile device gets this and it knows the signal strength. And so it hears the different access points, and it can see that that access point there has got a stronger signal strength, so it will disassociate itself from this AP and connect to this one, right? And that happens automatically in the background all the time. If your network is not properly configured and all your APs are too close to each other, it can't really do this roaming properly. So network design becomes a sticky problem. Sticky problems, we don't like those. Those are bad. So layer 3 roaming problems, these are where you're going to find the other 30% of issues. I hope that that's kind of been useful to you. We're not talking here in this module specifically of ExtremeCloud IQ, but as you might be a new customer using our systems or thinking about using our systems, here is a way issues that you might encounter when you first start rolling out wireless networks using actually anybody else's devices. These principles will apply to anybody. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and the content. I hope that it will be useful. If you have additional tips that you think would be useful to other people, and we can take it from there and try and get that information out. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate part of our family. Welcomed. We welcome you to our family, welcome you to our product. Thank you for your business. Have a great week.